the wonderful and safe arrival of my daughter about 2 months ago. And, she's the reason that I'm not here on YouTube. She doesn't sleep. She's beautiful, but she doesn't sleep. And so I don't sleep. And 3 kids is a lot of kids. Running a business and having 3 kids doesn't leave me a lot of time for anything on the side, but I want to be with you guys as much as possible, especially between now and the election, just because there's so much going on. And I've always loved, digging into this kind of stuff and researching it and talking about it. So I'm hoping to have time for that. Anyway, enough about me. Today's episode is going to kind of be just a roundup of a few of the hot ticket items that are going on right now. And I'll talk at the end about some kind of the topics I want to cover in the future. So, the first thing I kind of wanted to get into, this is just something that's been on my mind off and on all summer. As I've mentioned before, I own a brick and mortar business. It is located in northern Michigan. It has kept me extremely busy this summer. We opened a second location, which I also mentioned last year. And it was the craziest season that we've ever had. And the primary reason for that is all of the fallout and actions taken in response to the COVID scaredemic. Everyone absolutely flooded up north this summer. Basically, northern Michigan is always a really popular destination. If you're from Michigan, you know that. Because we have such a short season of nice weather, it gets absolutely mobbed in the high season. This year was record-breaking for everybody because so many people had all their other plans canceled. Like maybe they were going to go to Disney World, and instead of doing that, they decided to go up north instead. Maybe, their kids were supposed to be in camp all summer or doing, whatever scheduled activities that they were going to do, open houses, weddings, whatever, and instead all that got canceled, so they went up north. A bunch of people had a lot of extra time on their hands and extra money because of the unemployment bonus. And what did they do? They went up north. And it created this perfect storm of all of these extra people up north and literally the complete and total inability for any business up north, or really anywhere in Michigan, any business that was doing well, to hire staff. The staffing shortage was absolutely catastrophic. We were not able to hire almost anybody except for the existing staff that we had, and we always have to hire extra people in the summer. And we raised the wage. We did a huge jump in the wage. We offered crazy bonuses, but we couldn't compete with the $1,000 a week that people were getting to be able to just stay home with their families. And it was so bad that some of the restaurants in the area who had their dining room open, because they were allowed to have their dining room open finally, had to reclose their dining room and only do takeout simply because they couldn't hire staff. There was actually a gas station that closed its doors and put a sign out that said, "We're closed due to we can't hire anybody. Staffing shortage. We have no employees. We can't get anybody to work here." They just stopped selling gas. And that was a gas station really close to my business. So it created a lot of pressure on the existing staff. And, so if businesses cannot capitalize on the potential money they can earn, they can't, reinvest in their business and grow their business and add more jobs. And adding more jobs, of course, creates wage growth. And, of course, when this unemployment money runs out, which I think they expanded it to 26 weeks in Michigan from 20 weeks, and I think it's going to, pretty much everybody's is going to expire in October if they don't extend it. And there's been so many thousands of businesses in Michigan that have closed permanently that when these people do fall off the unemployment rolls, they're going to find it's so much harder to find a job than they thought it was going to be, than it was before. So, basically, I put a lot of blame at the feet of our governor on a lot of fronts having to do with this coronavirus stuff. But you have to also blame the people in Washington, too, that did this federal bonus. And, it put a chokehold on our Michigan economy in a huge way, which then puts a chokehold on jobs and wage growth and the middle class. Don't vote Democrat, people. They will destroy jobs, business growth, wage growth in your state. Just stop voting for Democrats, people. Okay, so the next topic to touch on briefly is the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I know that I'm not going to, dwell on this. I know that every podcast and every, commentator on the internet is talking about it. There are people who are, who feel that it is kind of cold-hearted and not really ethical or not really right to immediately start talking about, replacing her vacancy on the Supreme Court before she's, even cold, to kind of use a metaphor there. And I totally understand that. It is a little bit morbid to immediately talk about replacing her, the day of or the day after she passed. But as I pointed out to a couple of people, and I pointed out on Twitter, realistically speaking, RBG herself is the one who politicized her own death and created this environment. Because everybody knows, going back to Clarence Thomas and possibly even before that, that's before my political memory, but any vacancy on the Supreme Court is an immediate catalyst for a political firestorm, for a political battle, and it has been that way for decades, and everybody knows that. So if you don't want a political firestorm and a political battle to surround, the days of your passing, then you have to retire from the bench instead of dying on the bench. Obviously, the last time this happened, it was Justice Scalia, and his death was very unexpected. This time, her death was not unexpected. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer over a year ago, and she should have retired at that time if she did not want this political firestorm to surround her death. Obviously, she was trying to hold out for Biden. Presumably, she was trying to hold out for Biden to be able to replace her. But she knew, that this was going to happen if she didn't retire when her health failed. And realistically, if she didn't want to take any chances at all, she should have retired under Obama if it was that important to her to make sure to guarantee that she would be replaced by somebody who was ideologically aligned with her. So she didn't do either of those things. And she knew that there was a good chance she was going to pass away under Trump's presidency. I'm assuming her doctors, made that clear to her. And she chose to not retire. And so now here we are. Because she knew that we would have to replace her. She knew that. And a lot of people have talked about the reasons. Briefly, I'll kind of recap them. Just from a moral standpoint as conservatives, any chance that we have to protect the unborn, we have to take it. Any chance we have to further protect religious liberty, we have to take it. And so that's just the most important moral reason. And then secondarily, politically speaking, if we want to win this election, we have to nominate and confirm a judge to the best of our ability. While we hold the presidency for certain. And for, reasons of avoiding a constitutional crisis, as others have pointed out, we already know there's going to be litigation regarding, all the mail-in voting and all the, I'm going to kind of go over some of that stuff in a minute here. All of these crazy rulings from judges, lower court judges all over the country. And so we know there's going to be litigation that likely reaches the Supreme Court. And there's a possibility that there's an electoral tie. We can't take the chance of having a 4-4 split on the Supreme Court. And then I don't even know what would happen. I don't know if they would volley, the decision of who's president down to a lower court than the Supreme Court. That would be crazy. It's a constitutional crisis. So I don't think anyone really knows what would happen if we're in that position. So, morbid or not, we have to nominate somebody. It's an absolute imperative. Nominate and confirm somebody. Okay. So I want to talk about the election a little bit. And I don't want to be negative. I'm going to start out by saying, kind of reiterating some things that I said in the very first episode of this podcast that I ever did. And I talked about fear. I don't think fear is natural. I feel fear all the time. I feel fear for the safety of my children. I feel fear about the election. I feel fear, about a lot of things. So it's natural to feel that, but I think we should go out of our way, especially if you share my faith. I'm a Christian. We should go out of our way to not dwell in that fear and to spend time with the Lord, to when we feel that fear. So I don't want to dwell on it, and I don't want to be fearful about what the election might bring, because no matter what happens, God is sovereign, and his will still be done either way. But having said that, I do have some concerns about this election. I don't know if people are talking about it enough. I know that, it's being talked about, but here in Michigan, we have some really, really rough stuff ahead when it comes to this election. So months ago, our Attorney General mailed out an absentee ballot application to every single citizen in this state, 10 million people. I myself received 4. There are only 2 people over the age of 18 in my house, and I received 4 absentee ballot applications, 2 for my husband and myself, and 2 for the people who owned this house before us and moved to Massachusetts 5 years ago. So that was not super, that did not give me a lot of comfort about our election coming up. And I know a lot of people personally who received more, ballot applications than there are registered voters in their home. And, thanks everybody, all the Democrats who voted in Prop 3 in 2018. And so now everybody in the state of Michigan is automatically registered to vote, and you have to actually opt out of being registered to vote. Now, the devil's advocate would say, hey, Anna, why are you upset that people are being automatically registered to vote? Don't you want everybody to have the opportunity to vote? Yeah, anybody who wants to vote should be able to vote if they, are able to vote legally. That is not my issue. My issue is, this will make harvesting votes so much easier. So now you have all these people who, because there's tons of people who don't vote, right? So you have all these people that have no intention of voting. They don't care. They've never voted. They're not planning to vote, this November either. And so they never bothered to register to vote. Now they are registered to vote. So it's not like we don't have, this is the age of information. We have all the information. We know which people, are the ones who never vote. We know the non-voters. Now, obviously, they might still vote. They might change their mind. You can't ever really totally predict somebody's behavior. But in general, they know, the powers that be know which people don't vote. So now you have this magical gift. You have this gift of this cohort of people who are now registered to vote that never vote. And you mailed everybody absentee ballot applications. It really wouldn't be extraordinarily difficult to commit fraud with those two factors at play. Really, all you have to do is recruit or buy off a handful of postal workers, and you can possibly get the swing that you need to overcome the margin that Trump won by in 2016 here in Michigan, which was less than 11,000 votes. Recruit a couple postal workers in a couple of key counties with some ballots, sent to people who don't vote but are now registered to vote, and they don't even know they're registered to vote. Wouldn't be that hard. And there's some other crazy court decisions that have happened recently. Magically, all of them are in swing states, which is a total coincidence. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court extended the deadline for mail-in ballots to be returned, ruled that voters can use drop boxes to return them, and removed the Green Party's ticket from the ballot. In Wisconsin, a federal judge extended the deadline for receiving mail-in ballots by nearly a week. And New Jersey is doing a near total mail-in election. They mailed ballots, not just ballot applications, they mailed actual ballots to everybody in the state. So none of that is good news. And really, I think the only way to combat this is to absolutely overwhelm the rigging with massive, massive turnout, which could happen. Some people theorize that Trump actually did win the popular vote, but that many votes were rigged for Hillary Clinton, but that Trump still won in part because of just an overwhelming turnout. So we could have that. Turnout could overwhelm the system. The mail-in voting could backfire on the Democrats. And, I'm a little less optimistic about the election than I was a year ago based on all this stuff that I'm talking about right now. But the best thing that we can do personally to combat it is to vote in person, to get as many people as we know to also vote in person, and, volunteer to be a poll worker or a poll watcher or someone that counts absentee ballots. I signed up to be a poll worker. I'm waiting to get my information. I haven't heard anything from them, which is kind of weird because I applied like 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. But I encourage everybody to take those steps and pray. Pray about it as hard as you can. Okay. So I want to just kind of briefly talk about the whole Black Lives Matter, chaos, riots, all of that stuff. I say briefly because I kind of want to do an episode that expands on this a little bit more. But the whole thing about the race war and the riots and all of the videos of people getting, beat up and cars being mobbed and people being pulled out of their cars. And there was this man, Jake Gardner, who committed suicide just a couple of days ago because he defended himself with his firearm when he was attacked while protecting his bar with his father. And he ended up being initially it was ruled as self-defense and he was free, and then they impaneled a grand jury because the mob demanded it, and he ended up being indicted for killing the man who was trying to kill him. And he was so devastated by that indictment that he committed suicide. And a few people that I'm friends with knew him personally and said he was just a wonderful person. And, you know, it's devastating when you hear all these stories of all these people that have been killed since the riots began. You know, Officer Dorn, so many other people who have been injured or killed or had their businesses destroyed. It's so angering, and what further frustrates me about it is not, you know, we can see that the left is trying to divide us and turn, you know, black people against Republicans through the Black Lives Matter movement, but they're also playing us as well. And so that's kind of the point I want to make is I don't want us to play into the hands of these Marxists by hating somebody else for no reason, because that's what they want us to do. So I see all of these images, you know, being shared by people on the right. It's like this constant stream of, you know, images of violence against, you know, conservatives, against white people. And it's a steady diet. And what does it make you feel? It makes you feel angry. And it's not that we shouldn't share these things. It's not that we shouldn't know what's going on, because we should. I don't know where the balance is, but I do know that they're trying, the Marxists and the left and all the people who want this chaos and want this division, they want conservatives to hate other people based on skin color. They have this narrative of racism, and not only are they manufacturing racism, but they're trying to, not only are they manufacturing a narrative of racism, they want to manufacture actual racism, which is very possible. I mean, it's like if you show footage steadily, day in and day out, to millions of people of, you know, Black Lives Matter activists targeting white people just because they're white, or just because they're conservative, or just because they're voting for Trump, or just because they're a Christian, it's going to cause you to just hate anybody who looks like those attackers. And we need to guard ourselves against that. We need to guard ourselves against, you know, giving into that baser instinct of just automatically judging somebody just because we think we know what they're about. But yeah, that concerns me, because the more we hate and the more we just kind of have this white hot rage, the more it plays in the left's hands. That's what they want. They want us to hate other people. They want a race war. They want both sides angry, and it plays into their hands. The unity is the Trump ticket. Trump wants to unify people. Trump wants, to make the country great again, and he wants people to come together and work together. And that is what, any conservative wants or should want. So, sorry if that was a little incoherent. I apologize. But I think people know what I'm trying to say. I don't necessarily see the value in constantly sharing video clips and footage of things that are going to make us blinded by rage. And it doesn't mean we should never share it, and it doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. But I think when we do talk about it and we do share about it, it should be kind of go hand in hand and followed up with, solutions. What are solutions to this problem that aren't, more hate and violence? So that's my thoughts about that. But I do want to talk in my next episode about, kind of how we got to this place. And, I was talking with a friend of mine last week, and I said, we are a nation at war. And the sooner that everyone on the right, actually everyone in the country, the sooner everyone understands that our nation is at war and just accepts that as true and as reality, the sooner we can figure out how we're going to get out of the situation that we're in with all the riots. And, we have a generation, we have the fruit of 20 years, decades of Marxism in our education system. And we have to deal with that. And it's not going to get better anytime soon, because this is a bell that you can't unring. Once you have thousands of radicals burning cities down left and right, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Biden can't stop it. We can take steps. Trump could take steps, and these Democratic leaders in these cities could take steps to end the violence, absolutely, and they should be doing that. I mean, there should be arrests being made. There should be riot police. I mean, we should be putting down the violence as quick as humanly possible, but you can't unring the bell on the ideology that's driving it. I mean, you can't unring the bell on millions. Obviously, not millions of people are rioting, but you can't unring the bell on millions of, millennials and college students and high school students having been completely inoculated by a Marxist education system. I mean, some of these people, you're never going to bring them back. And so this is just, a poisonous fruit from a poisonous tree that we're going to have to deal with and, put down like a dog. And then, do what Trump is doing, which is trying to change, what's happening at the beginning of the pipeline, the education system. So, he's trying to prevent critical race theory and the 1619 Project from being taught in the schools. People need to start waking up. It continues to boggle my mind how many conservative parents are so happy to just write the check and shuttle their kids, into colleges where all this stuff is shoved down their throat, and then they become radicalized in 4 short years. There has to be a radical shift in this country, and maybe this is going to be finally the straw that breaks the camel's back. Maybe parents are going to see, hey, my kid, or my friend's kid who grew up with my kid is sympathizing with these lunatics. I want to make sure that doesn't happen to my kid. I'm not going to send my kid to college. And I don't have anything against college. Find a conservative college. There's a few of them left to send your kid to. Talk to your kid about other things that there are to do in life. Starting your own business, getting into the trades. There's a lot more to life than a liberal arts degree. So, yeah, that's kind of, again, sorry for the kind of incoherent stream there, but, people, I've gotten asked a few times, by people in my personal life, well, what can we do about these riots? There's not a lot you can do. It's like conservatives have been talking about Marxism and, taking God out of the schools for years, and that eventually, the chickens were going to come home to roost, and they have. We radicalized an entire generation of people, and those people are either burning our cities down or sympathizing with the people burning our cities down. And it's in very large numbers. I mean, AOC is another symptom of that. And she represents a very vocal minority of the left. And it's not that small. I mean, I don't know what percentage it is of the Democratic Party, 20% of the Democratic Party, maybe 30% of the Democratic Party. A lot of the Bernie bros, Bernie voters. We cannot unring that bell. So, we're in for a fight. We're in for a massive fight, not just this November, but for the next several years. And people have to start reevaluating massively how they choose to educate their system, or how they choose to educate their kids, and how involved they're going to be in the education system if they're choosing to remain in the public school system, and if they choose to continue to send their kids to these more liberal colleges. They need to get involved. They need to start, reading the curriculum and reading the textbooks of what their kids are being taught. And until people start realizing what's going on, that's not going to change. And like I said, we're at war, and we need to start, behaving as if we are in one, and everybody needs to figure out what role they want to play in that. So that's all for today. The next 2 episodes that I would like to do a recap on the first debate, which is September 29th. And I'm really hoping that it happens. I'm hoping that Biden doesn't come up with some random reason to not do the debate. But yeah, I'd like to do an episode recapping that. And then I want to do an episode just focusing on the issue of Marxism, because that word is being used heavily now. It's become a mainstreamed word. We know that the Black Lives Matter organization was founded by Marxists. We know that, Marxist ideology is in our education systems, as I mentioned. But I am seeing pushback now from the left. They used to kind of say, oh, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, say that, that there's Marxists, in the Democratic Party, and that, and that Marxism is in our education system, you're crazy. They're not really saying that so much anymore. I'm starting to see more people saying, well, what's so bad about Marxism? And they did this, if you'll remember, they did this with socialism. When Obama won in 2008, I wish I had thought to find it, but I saw a Newsweek, I think it was Newsweek cover that said, "We are all socialists now." They were remarking on Obama being elected. And I remember being so shocked by that headline that I decided I wanted to kind of save it and look back on it years later as, wow, this is a turning point. This is a point in our history where we went from socialism being a dirty word to now that Obama's elected, they're willing to just say it. We heart socialism. And we didn't think that was possible 10 years ago. And now, what are we seeing? We're seeing Marxism being normalized. And I'm seeing, liberals comment, hey, you're just being, you're being over the top about being negative about Marxism. It's not as bad as you think. And what's the issue with being a Marxist, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to do an episode on just that, something that you can share with your friends if they want to know, how to argue against Marxism, and if they want to understand the danger, the absolute massive mistake that we all made. I mean, not me, and probably not you, of accepting the phrase and the concept of white privilege as canon. I did a video on white privilege a long time ago before I started my podcast. It's here on YouTube somewhere. We made a massive mistake by not pushing back hard on the white privilege thing when it came around 5, 6, 7 years ago, whenever it first started being thrown around. And it just snowballed from there. It was like we gave them an inch. We said, okay, you know what? And again, when I say we, I don't mean you and me. But I mean regular people who aren't political. They're not on the left, they're not on the right. They're just kind of average people that live their life. We were all bombarded a few years ago with the whole white privilege concept, and people just accepted it. Everybody feels bad. We feel horrible that slavery happened. We all watched Roots in school. At least at my school, it was required viewing. Terribly, heart-wrenching movie showing the realities of slavery. And we all feel horrible about it. So people were like, okay, you know what? I feel bad that slavery happened. I feel bad that Jim Crow happened. And so I'm just going to agree that even still today, I'm privileged just because of my skin color, no other reason. And we're just going to, if that makes everybody happy and if that creates more racial harmony, we're just going to go ahead and give you that one. We agree. White privilege is true, is canon. So that was one of the worst mistakes we made, and we gave them that inch, and they just took it and ran with it. And here we are 5, 6, 7, 8 years later with crazy racial Marxism and crazy critical race theory concepts like we need to bring segregation back. That now it's not that, that black people need to be segregated from white people. It's that white people need to be segregated from black people, which is no different. So we should have never accepted it in the first place, and we need to continue to push back and not accept a single we need to push back and not accept a single concept that is rooted, in this racial Marxism and in this critical race theory. We can't accept white privilege. We can't accept that that blacks, are being targeted in greater numbers than is proportional. We have to push back every single time on every single point, every time we have conversations with people about these things. So I want to do an episode just kind of breaking down what Marxism is, why it is so dangerous, something that you can kind of share with your friends. And that's what we'll be talking about next time. So I apologize if this is a little bit rambly today. I'm out of practice, clearly. And you don't have to worry about remarking on the sound. I am on a new laptop, but I'm going to actually return this one, and hopefully by the next time I record, I will have my new laptop, and at that time you can give me your constructive criticism on the quality of the sound. But I hope you all are doing well. If you liked what you heard, please give me the thumbs up. Please subscribe and leave a comment. That would be awesome. If you want to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, that would be cool too. And until then, the next time, I will see y'all later.